The Senate confirmed President Bola Tinubu's nomination of service chiefs as the new appointees goes through scrutiny by the lawmakers. And President Bola Tinubu has reversed some of the pardoned Nigerians convicted Nigerians on the clemency list has now signed an instrument of pardon. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale right here in Abuja. We're bringing to you some of your top stories in the land today, and we're analyzing and breaking them down for you. Plus, how are the states of the Federation faring in all of what is happening in the country? The monies that go into the state and perhaps how they are utilizing it. An organization, BudgiT, has broken it down for us in the State of the States report. And we shall be analyzing and looking at the figures. Whatever state of the Federation you belong, you better get closer to the screen, because tonight we'll bring you how your state governor is managing the affairs of your state. And we'll be asking the critical questions. Where are those money that they've gotten from the federal government when subsidy has been removed? And they said, look into what the states are doing. Tonight, that's what we're going to be doing. The ones on the below the pyramid and on the top of the pyramid, those are what we're going to be analyzing tonight and see who is performing and who is not, and who gets the knock. Plus, we'll be bringing you the screening of the service chiefs. What this means, the President Bola Tinubu is also asking for external loan, which gotten an approval. This gets our attention tonight. It's going to be a full package tonight. Stick around with me. But first, let's serve you with some of the political roundup stories.
Some legal practitioners have described as unworkable and dangerous the proposed amendments to the Electoral Act 2022, which seeks to shift the traditional burden of proof in election petitions from the petitioner to the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. The position was made by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Joseph Daudu, at a conference organized by the Rule of Law Forum in Abuja, which aims at propagating the inherent flaws and dangers of the proposed amendments. Aggrieved members of the Indigenous Contractors Association of Nigeria have issued a 7-day ultimatum to the federal government to settle all outstanding payments for projects completed since 2024. President of the association, Mr. Jackson Musu, told journalists at a news conference in Abuja that the federal government is yet to match promises with action by clearing all the outstanding debts to their members, and they will continue to occupy the streets of Abuja after the expiration of the ultimatum. Ahead of the November 8th governorship election in Anambra State, the African Democratic Congress, ADC, is asking party members to be more united. Anambra ADC candidate John Musu specifically tasked party faithful to work hard to boost the party's support base to ensure success at the polls. Musu gave the charge while addressing party faithful in Orumba South local government area of the state. Meanwhile, as the internal crisis rocking the leadership of the Adamawa State chapter of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, continues, a new twist unfolded as the party's zonal working committee inaugurated a parallel caretaker executive. The inauguration, which was led by the Assistant National Organizing Secretary and Northeast Zonal Organizing Secretary of the ADC, Umar Bello Jada, saw the emergence of Malam Saidu Kumsiri as chairman of a 44-man caretaker committee to oversee the party's affairs in the state. And finally, there was a little tension as Philip Shoaibu and Omobayo Godwins clashed over who should represent Edo State at the former Deputy Governor's Forum during its 4th annual national conference. The drama began when Omobayo was introduced as the former deputy governor at the event in Abuja on Tuesday, prompting Shoaibu to object publicly. The event briefly descended into chaos as both men argued over legitimacy. Speaking after the incident, Shoaibu said the introduction was improper, insisting Omobayo was never elected but brought in through the back door.
Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's tell you that there's been a review of the presidential pardon list that was earlier announced by the presidency. Today, that list has been reviewed, and the president has reversed some prominent names that came up and has been criticized by Nigerians today. We saw that Miriam Sanders' name has been reversed, reducing sentence to 12 years. And the president reversed the presidential pardon, granting Miriam Sanders, who was convicted of the killing of her husband, Biliamin Obello, in Abuja. In the official gazette released by the president, special advisor on information and strategy, her sentence was reduced from death to 12 years imprisonment. It also revealed that a convict would serve 12 years based on compassionate terms. Well, also, the president has signed the instrument of the presidential pardon. Let's also tell you that the presidency today has announced that it's requesting for the approval of the National Assembly for an external loan of $2.35 billion to partly service the budget. The National Assembly earlier today has approved that request of the president of $2.347 billion from the international capital market to partly finance the 2025 budget deficit and refinance the maturing Eurobonds. And so tonight, we're going to be looking into the state of states. As a report that is published by a civil society organization, BudgiT, that focuses its attention on the fiscal spending and the situation of government in Nigeria, focusing also on analyzing governance state in the country. It released what it termed the State of States report, which breaks down how each state of the Federation has performed over the last few months, the revenue they've generated, how they've been spent, and how they focus on governance-related policies. Tonight, I'm being joined by one of the top executives of BudgiT, who is going to be breaking it down for us tonight. Please come forward and let's get to... Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I
Delighted to be here.
Thank you so much indeed. Now, if you may come step... absolutely. Now, you look at what is going on. If you can summarize what the State of the States report means, not only for the government or the federative units, but Nigerians at large.
I think the State of States is a clear description of what Nigerians complain about all the time. You know, they say we focus too much on the federal government, we talk too much about Tinubu. The State of States provides insight, it provides analysis into what you could call the fiscal health of the 36 states of the Federation.
But, I mean, this is not the first time BudgiT is doing this. You've done it quite a few times.
It's our 10th year, actually.
Absolutely. Now, this year, because this report is significant. Now, this is the first time the state are getting much more, in terms of percentage of what they've ever gotten after the removal of subsidy. Now, we've seen a lot of inflows into the pockets and into the coffers of the state. What would you say, summarily, before we go into the details, what has BudgiT discovered?
So BudgiT has discovered what, is really there for all to see. The cumulative revenue of the total revenue of all the states almost doubled, or slightly doubled, compared to 2023 fiscal year. And it's clear that a lot of this had to do with revenue and transfers from the Federation Account Allocation Committee, or, that had to do with the removal of subsidy. So states are earning far more, but IGR has also improved in no small way across board. Our report this year is significant in the sense that we're looking at the 10-year performance. So we are comparing year-on-year IGR growth, and we are also comparing, 2023 fiscal year to the 2024 fiscal year. And we have seen some, significant improvements. Some states have improved their IGR, quite significantly. And I would implore Nigerians to take a look at the reports themselves.
Now, part of what we're going to be looking at now is we're looking at the federating units.
Yes.
In terms of money that have come into their coffers the 36 state plus the FCT. We're looking at what has gone into their hand and whether or not they are self-dependent or self-sufficiently able to stand alone without federal allocation, and you are able to look at them in terms of the monies available to them, how they spent it, and above all, whether or not they can survive without the center. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's get into it. A quick dive gives us an understanding. This is the overall fiscal performance ranking. And in this one, you said you have excluded Rivers State because of that 6-month military life.
You put it better than me.
In the interregnum, in the governance structure, because it went on 6 months of state of emergency. That can be excused. That's the reason, isn't it? But look, the usual, the likely suspect, Lagos top in the ranking. But unfortunately, Rivers is usually finding itself. Yes. Some of the South states will find themselves here. Yes. But interestingly, it's only Edo that appears here. The most very surprising one is Kwara. Kwara has always ranked at the bottom. But now, look at what it is.
So Kwara, funny enough, has been doing relatively well in the 2023 and I think 2022 editions of our report. If I'm not mistaken, Kwara was still within the top 10 in 2023. Again, like you rightly pointed out, with the absence of Rivers, and by the way, we unfortunately do not look at FCT, but we're thinking of doing that in subsequent editions. This has created like a vacuum for other states to fill in. So you have the Edos, you have Kwara being able to jump up, and Abia as well. But I would also implore Nigerians to take a look at the 6th to 10th. You see Kano there, you see Nasarawa. We have states from North Central and Northwest that are doing relatively well. But when we look at the disaggregated, the indexes, I'm sure, the picture will get more clear.
Break it down, because I don't want to encumber my viewers and the lovers of this program with the economy shenanigans and those jargons. I would like always to break it down for an average person to understand. What do we mean by fiscal performance?
So by fiscal performance, we need to realize that states are corporate entities. States are like businesses. States can have a balance sheet, they can declare profits or losses, and they can utilize their revenues efficiently. They can also spend efficiently or not efficiently. So the state of states looks at the states as if they were corporate organizations. How well is their balance sheet, for example?
So in other sense, so let's imagine that these states are 36 in 36 private organizations like Dangote, Unilever, Globalcom, and the rest of those big companies. Let's assume these are private entities. You are saying that what you have discovered in their overall performance, these 5 states are doing very well. If they were on the stock market, this is the kind of stock
you would want to buy
wants to
shares from these guys.
And these are the poor performing ones. These are the stocks that nobody wants to buy. These guys are not running it well.
Yes.
I mean, I'm just breaking it down for people to understand. This is what the figures are telling us, that these states in the lower ranking have not done very well. Their books are not reading very well. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, unfortunately, there's red there. I'm not saying their books are in the red, but they are not performing as well as they could.
In comparative analysis.
Yes, allowed
to other states.
Precisely.
Yeah. Now, do we have states that are really, because Sheung Onibili and I had analysis where states were insolvent, where we analyzed and we saw that there are some states that will die financially. But are there situations like that this year or last year?
Yes. In fact, interestingly, this year, you can see the states in pink. So the numbers, the larger the number is, the more the more they are relying on federal transfers or federation transfers than IGR. So this table or this index looks at how well states can do if they did not have federal or federation transfers and they only had IGR. So Enugu, Lagos, Abia, Anambra, Kwara are doing relatively well. In fact, the best out of the 35, and they have enough IGR that could theoretically cover, their recurrent expenditure, personnel, and overhead. In contrast, these states do not have enough to cater for their overheads and their personnel. It might be because they have very high wage bills, but the devil is always in the details.
So it then means I go back to my breaking it down, that these states, for example, without federal allocation, if there is some kind of hiatus or there is a break in transmission in the inflow that comes
in the monthly inflow,
in the monthly federal allocation that goes to the state every month. Despite the fact that Imo State, for example, is part of the oil producing state. Without federal allocation, these states are in trouble.
These states are, I'm afraid, in trouble, yes.
But these ones, they've done well in the IGR. But the advice is that they need to do well as far as IGR is concerned, which is a main revenue
should be their primary revenue source, yes.
But they're not doing very well.
Not as well as they should.
They're in the red. This bottom five.
They're in the pink.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, you look at, okay, so this is what, in terms of performance,
this is IGR growth.
Okay.
Year-on-year IGR growth.
All right. So we look at the performance by, so this is year-on-year, isn't it?
Yes.
IGR growth. But what does this tell us?
So this tells us the difference between their previous year's IGR growth, their previous fiscal year, which is 2023, and the 2024 fiscal year. So where you have higher numbers, they've been able to significantly, there's a huge difference between what they earned in the 2023 fiscal year compared to 2024. They are doing better in terms of absolute volume of IGR. The lower it is, in fact, where you see negative numbers, it means that they made less in the 2024 fiscal year than the 2023 fiscal year.
So it then means that when President Bola Tinubu says subsidy is gone, the weight of that statement is what we are seeing now.
It's heavy.
Because now they're saying that look into the state. What gets into their hands? How are they spending it? How are they performing? Are they just sitting on their hands and doing nothing?
Yes.
And that's why a lot of Nigerians, I mean, those of us who will say, look, we do not have only one government in this country.
Precisely.
We have governments in this country.
Precisely.
Unfortunately, we focus the attention on the central government. But this is what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
If every state is up and running and up and doing, we might have it better. So in terms of year-on-year performance, Enugu is still top.
Phenomenal. It did the best. In fact, it exceeded Bayelsa by almost 2 percentage points.
And Abia too.
And Abia as well, yes.
And we could rely on the analysis of this performance for what we've seen from 2023, isn't it?
Yes.
In terms of the growth,
yes,
isn't it? So
yes.
That means that governments that just got a new governor in the last 2 years, we can see the reflection of their performance, isn't it?
Exactly.
So in Kano, in Osun, in Abia, in Bayelsa is not a new governor, Enugu is a new governor. So we could say kudos to the government of these who are relatively new. But if you are relatively new here and you are not doing well, it means that you need to go back to the classroom to learn more economics and get things done, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's move forward. So this is the other one. So comparatively, more public revenue left to implement the capital expenditure components of their budget. It means that whatever they have, we are not seeing it in capital expenditure. Is that what it means?
Yes. So this looks at the total revenue, which includes aids and grants that can cover their total expenditure. So these states plus FAC plus IGR plus what they can get in terms of aids and grants are doing very, very well and are having minimal, very, very minimal waste in terms of excesses. While the ones in pink, despite the huge amounts of FAC, are still finding it very difficult, to provide for their operating expenses.
So
this
there is
this is like a shift in the conversation. This sort of estimates the fiscal space the states have to borrow, and we look at debt as a percentage of revenue, debt as a percentage of debt servicing. Debt as a percentage of debt servicing. We look at the personnel costs to total revenue, among other things. So if your state was a true corporate entity, what's the fiscal space your state would have, to borrow? And I think this is also critical for ratings agencies. This is critical for states that want to collect debt or want to get into debt or collect loans. How well or how healthy are they in that regard?
Lagos is probably the most indebted state in the country.
It's overextended, yeah.
Either by local or foreign debts. But it's not looking very good in terms of its performance in servicing those facilities. Is that what this report is saying?
I mean, the interesting thing is, one insight is debt growth is actually slowing down. If you compare the 2022 to 23 fiscal year to the 2023 to 2024 fiscal year, the increase in debt is slower than it was in that previous fiscal year. And we've actually seen a significant reduction in total debt size, not just foreign, but even domestic. So I think by and large, states are doing relatively better 2024 fiscal year than they did in the previous year.
Do we see any state run outside of the country for any debt in the last year?
So we would have to look at the DMO numbers. Yes, we'd have to look at the DMO numbers. But I know that there are quite a few states that did try to get into debt. I was looking at the data earlier today, but I can't seem to recall it at the moment. But, you know, there is still a significant portion of debt in aggregate that is foreign denominated. And, you know, a lot of pain came from the exchange rate controls that brought about the shift from 800 to 1,005. But we're seeing that easing off a bit.
The culture of loan request and the appetite for debt looks like it reduced drastically in the last year and a half. Is that the situation that you found out?
I mean, I suppose if you remove the repeat offenders, I don't want to call the names of those states, but it looks like, you know, states are getting more naira. So they may not necessarily need to overextend themselves for massive capital infrastructure projects like they would before, you know, where they had much less naira. And
everyone needs to be careful now, especially because the naira to dollar exchange rate is high, and a lot of people now who took the loans now some 3-4 years ago, especially the old governors, will now have to spend more naira to service the external debt sent with the central government. So I think a lot of people need to be cautious. The dollar to the naira has stabilized for a bit for the last few months. So it gives you, it allows you to be able to plan. That's one thing that stability has given us. But let's go quickly and see the rest of what does this mean? Abia jumped to the top here, and we found Ogun, Kogi, Cross River, Plateau, Ondo in the bottom part of the ladder.
So this essentially just looks at how well states are prioritizing capital expenditure. Are they spending more of it than in recurrent, you know, personnel and overheads? And this gives insight into just where the money is going and by what percentage. So you have states that intend to, I suppose, work on ease of doing business, or, you know, translate infrastructure into improving livelihoods, being in the top 5 of the ranking. And of course, states that are in pink are not allocating as much as they should, or they're allocating far less than their operating expenses to capital expenditure.
All right. So let's look at it. So these are key insights into a summary of what exactly we are looking at. Can you break this down for us quickly?
Yes, I mean, so the combined revenue of all the 35 states increased from 8.6 trillion to 17.7. You know, that is massive. And that had a lot of that had to do with FAC. 29 states relied on FAC receipts for at least half of their total revenue. So this is sort of bringing into light a lot of the...
and I'm worried, you know why? Because the more FAC you get, the lazier some states have become. They're getting more money, the appetite to run after revenue and generate local... Sort of dwindle. And that is a problem. We cannot find ourselves in what Nigeria found itself after the oil boom. We became lazier. We become so distracted because more monies are coming. And this is what we're seeing now. They're more reliant on... when a lot of states were insolvent, they were looking at alternative measures. A lot of them went to borrow, though.
Some had bailouts from the federal government?
2-3 times.
So, I mean, finally in the corner there, FAC comprised at least 60% of the recurrent revenue of 30 states, except Lagos, Ogun, and Enugu. So you can see that these 3 states, I mean, Lagos is the outlier, but Ogun and Enugu seem to be doing pretty well. 31 states relied on FAC for at least 80% of their recurrent revenue. So the story is actually getting quite challenging for a lot of states.
Lagos State earned 2.24 trillion. Massive. I mean, this is, if in dollar time, Lagos State is, in terms of earnings, is like the size of 3 states in the West Africa.
It's a special economic
3 countries in West Africa.
It's a special economic zone. Yes, yes.
And so there's some things that BudgiT Sanwo-Olu, the governor of Lagos State, things that I've seen. That water sports. And I saw something else about water transportation, and I've seen a lot of things that will attract a lot of people in this December, the Dirty December. I'm looking forward to what the figures will be when Dirty December, because hearing a lot of people, when I hear about Dirty December, Lagos will get a lot of attention. And I think that a lot of states also need to learn from that. There is a new airport in Ogun State, which a lot of people, tourists, should also look at in coming. Oyo is also a border state. What Makine is doing in Oyo State, you can take the train to Lagos, and these are opportunities within that zone, isn't it?
Precisely. Yeah. So gross FAC grew, considerably from 5.4 trillion to 11.38. So this is just to give a sense of how wide or how massive federation account transfers have been in one fiscal year. Yeah, so the aggregate IGR of 35 states grew by over 50%. And, we do have to give the states a bit of kudos for that, especially the ones that grew considerably year on year, and those that also grew considerably in the 10-year period that we looked at. 15 states grew their IGR by more than 50%, Enugu having the highest, like I said, while only 2 states recorded negative IGR growth. If you recall the Index A1 chart, 2 states on the bottom had negative growth, which means that their 2024 fiscal year IGR was less than 2023 fiscal year.
Kebbi is the kind of example no one wants to have.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, the government and the people of that place need to really wake up.
Yes.
Right.
So some rather disappointing numbers. The cumulative spending of the states, about 2.11 trillion, was used to service debt. That's about a quarter of their cumulative spending. So you could say that out of every 1 naira, about 25 kobo is being used to service debt. Yeah.
All right. These are the recommendations that are making.
A wall of recommendations, yeah.
It's a lot. But what stands out here? What should we be looking out for? I'm personally taking a lot of lessons from here. States are becoming rather lazier than we used to find. They cannot be like Dasika and the lethargic. They need to wake up economically and think wider to be able to earn more, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I think my top 3 takeaways from the recommendations would be to digitize revenue collection. The chairpersons of the various state boards of internal revenue do need to work better on not just harmonizing their tax regimes, but digitizing them. Make it easy for people to pay taxes, and you'd see a difference in that. Of course, deploying tax intelligence, that would work pretty well. One more is to harmonize the taxes, levies, and fees. So what the federal government is doing with the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Reforms is the same thing that states should be doing. They should be harmonizing their taxes with the local governments. Make it easy, make it transparent, make it simple, drill down the number of taxes to very few, and you'd see an increase in tax payments.
Well, that's about it. Thank you so much. Kudos to you and your team at BudgiT for the work you're doing. There's a big lesson that in a nation of a federal state, federating units composing of the central, the state, and the local government need to work in unison. More money is flowing down, but at the bottom level, how are they looking at it? The governance structure and the governance at the grassroots, we need to put our attention on. But thanks so much indeed
for having me.
Time. We take a break, everyone. But when we return, our attention will be on another very important one. We looked at economy. This time around, our attention is on security. What exactly is going on? What is President Tinubu up to? We'll be breaking it down for you. My next guest, we excite you. We'll be right back, everyone, after that. Today we saw the screening and the grilling of the service chiefs who are being nominated by President Bola Tinubu. The procedure is that the president has the power to nominate and appoint, but the National Assembly has also the power of approval of such nominees into such offices as stipulated by the Nigerian Constitution, which include the service chiefs. So today, they face the Senate and members of the House of Representatives, but they were confirmed by the Senate. Let me allow you to listen to what the Chief of Defense Staff, who is now risen to becoming the most senior military officer in the land. Take a listen to him.
Being a service chief in Nigeria, it's something that requires courage, extreme dedication, and commitment. And that means you have to submit yourself totally to not sleeping, to not having any time of yours, and doing everything under duress to make Nigeria safer. We all know that we are dealing with every kind of warfare these days, which includes cyber crimes, cyber warfare, cyber attacks, and all in that light. And it's important for us as a country to checkmate the kind of misinformation that's out there. Because if this is not checkmated and on time, I think our challenges will be far from it over.
That was the Chief of Defense Staff who will be leaving a role as the Chief of Army Staff. But the man that will be replacing him in that role also has a way and approach in which he thinks that things should run when he gets into office in taking charge of one of the most vibrant armies in Africa. Take a listen to the Chief of Army Staff designate.
So we are going to improve our night fighting capability to counter those threats. We will leverage on intelligence to give us the requisite intelligence to deal with this issue, emphasizing synergy with all security agencies to the extent that we have effective multi-domain and multi-agency operations to tackle that threat. And I believe this will go a long way to stem those tides. For troops welfare, the fighting power, the components of fighting power, the moral component is an important aspect, and welfare of troops is a cardinal point in that issue.
All right, now, there were a lot of development in this country. When the service chiefs who go in front of the lawmakers and in front of Nigerians and they're promising how they will get things done and keeping the nation together, there is a history to that. In 1999, Nigeria returned to democratic rule to the delight of international community, putting an end to series of military coup and military junta. Nigerians home and abroad are expectant of some level of governance and some kind of freedom, financial, democratic, and in a lot of ways civil freedom, and assurance that the people's government will satisfy the yearnings of the people, spur rapid development, and return the country to its rightful place in the community of nations. Just a reminder here that the freedom was not served a la carte. There are those who fought with it with their own blood and lives. There are those who were in the trenches, who went on exile to fight for this democracy that we are all enjoying. Some paid the supreme price. It is not in dispute that there are bound to be teeth and problems, especially at the beginning of the new journey. However, 26 years after, rumors of a coup d'etat will spread dissatisfaction, insecurity, much that the chairman House Committee on Internal Security has said yesterday that there is a threat by terrorists to bomb the National Assembly. The question is our democracy under threat? I'm being joined by our political and policy analyst, Kawale Johnson. Thank you so much indeed for coming on tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll not hold back. And tonight we're going to be hitting the nail on the head. We're at a junction in our political and democratic life that we need to take ourselves seriously as a people if the rest of the world will take us seriously. The question I ask first is our democracy under threat? Kawale.
How do I answer this? Okay. first, the democracy we practice in Nigeria is fashioned after the American democracy. That is built largely on the works of John Locke, the social contract works of John Locke, that gives power to the people, which means that the democracy is about the people. That, again, is seen in the definition of the 16th president of America, Lincoln, that said democracy is the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Simply put, the people is at the center of your democracy. So if the people is not at the center of any democracy, certainly that democracy is challenged. Now, if you look at that, what are the three key elements you can see? It means your democracy must originate from the people. That is through the ballot, right? Number two, must be operated by the people. Your representative, they must be in touch with the people. Every single decision they take, maybe at the House of Representatives, at the Senate, must be about the people. In fact, must come for the people. Now, lastly, must be about the people, must exist to serve the people. Now, let me answer this very clearly. Is our democracy serving the people the way it should serve them now? Number two, is our democracy being operated by the people? Number three, is our democracy originating from the people? If these questions are not in the affirmative, certainly our democracy is challenged. But is our democracy under threat? Now, I think I'll be interrogating that further, to explain. Why do you think our democracy is being challenged today? Now, what are the factors that we are seeing? You're seeing all manner of, characters getting into politics. They do everything they want to do to get power. Now, here is the truth. Why do you think a politician will kill, will maim, will steal the ballot to get to power? Is it because he loves to serve? No, simply put, he wants to get there for a purpose. What is it? Purpose. The purpose is money at the end of the day, because today politics is about the biggest industry in Nigeria. So largely, 95% of those you see in politics today are there not to serve. Simply, they are there largely to be part of the economy, of the states, to take part of the share. Now, you ask yourself, if the entire democracy is centered around someone getting whatever he can get from the state as a part of his own national cake, that democracy cannot be said to be about the people. So definitely that democracy is challenged. Number two, let's go further. Now, how do we recruit those you see in the system? Now, when they are recruited, what do they do when they get there? So if all of these questions would not be in the positive, certainly you can say that your democracy is challenged. But is democracy actually under threat? Now, you've heard, I think you may be asking that questions, perhaps, with the recent development in the polity. One, you have the National Assembly saying that, we have a letter from, we are under threat, they may bomb the National Assembly. We have the rumor of coup. And the question is, are we under threat as a people? I think we are under threat, not just by this. We are under threat daily. You go on the street, you could be kidnapped. You don't even know who is who on the street. Are we secured? The answer is no. So it is not just the democracy that is under threat. We are all under threat.
I don't believe there is a coup. But when there's a plan for a coup, but you see a report that some houses are being raided. There's a quick action a few days after the rumor came out. There are stories about people being arrested and being kept and being investigated. And these are pointers to the fact that we are in interesting times. And you see just how many countries of Africa that have now been taken over by military boys. The question is that what can we do to ensure that what has become a dissenting voice or alleged coup, the question that we need to answer is why has there not been a clear communication to that effect? The military has spoken, but the leadership, political leadership of the country seem to have been silent about it.
So I must confess this. This is about the most professional handling I've seen of crisis in Nigeria. You must give it to the military. The way this has been handled, I don't think you want them to come out and say there's a coup d'etat. And I'll explain why. Imagine the international community screaming headline Nigeria, you should know what that would do to your investors, know what that would do to the international communities and all that. So I think it may be very, okay for them not to come out to state this, but handling this professionally. However, what we must also warn is the fact that we shouldn't have a system. Of course, I think by the way they have handled this very cleverly, we are not likely to see a situation where this becomes petty and politicized at the end of the day. But truly, I do not think they've handled this wrongly. Yeah.
But so the big question here is that this new service chief that we've seen being screened today, can they deliver, or how would you say they can handle the situation? Things are already tense anyway. There's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of distrust here and there. And there are those who say the manner in which Tinubu did it, a lot of people were not aware that there's going to be a change in the guard, in the military top brass. It has happened. It's a master stroke, and the manner in which, no rumor about it, it just happened. We woke up to it and it has happened. The manner in which it doesn't look like the presidency or the leadership of the country is being jittery about it. But the bigger question is, how do they then go forward in
who told you they were not jittery? Who told you that?
Well, maybe they didn't show it.
Of course. That is part of the element of leadership. That they've done perfectly well. But here's the truth. The dimension I think I was scared of is the fact that you have some people who are already saying, oh, this is not true. Maybe they staged this to get out some people. You wonder, the former service chiefs who were chiefs, sitting chiefs. So how can you bring a rumor of coup to take them out? I don't think that is healthy for the polity. That again shows the kind of division you have in the polity. See, let me take you back to the First Republic. When you had the First Republic truncated, what do you think happened? What did they give as a reasons? They gave three things. They gave first corruption. They gave, I think the second thing was nepotism, and the third was ethnic rivalry. If you look at today's Nigeria, all of those factors, in fact, are not just there, but they are deeper than they were in those days. And that is why you see the kind of dissenting, not just the views, voices you're seeing in the polity, where the people are not even believing the government to say truly these happen. So I think ultimately we must find a way to restore the confidence of the people in the government. But how can the new service chiefs do this better? Now, let me tell you, you have in Nigeria one of the best military you can find in this part of the world. So I think they have the strategies in place, and those you've seen, they have risen through the ranks. Of course, they've been there. You have competent among them, and all that. So I'm expecting them to do better. The only thing I see is how we'll have the CDI operate. I think he's of custody now or so. So if he's still 2 stars, now, and the chief of army staff, when decorated, will become 3-star. If he's on the uniform, is he going to salute him? So I think the president needs to be advised very well to see how to manage that part. But we learned that the man is doing an incredible job there on the present issue.
Let's go for another break. But when we come back, I'd like to know, is the political class sensitive enough about the situation? Just a moment. It's not going to be an answer for now. Okay. But something that we all need to ruminate and get your views on it. Is the political class sensitive enough, or they're going as though nothing is happening, where the poor on the street are suffering, and there is some agitation. See some people saying that no monies are being paid. They have done the jobs for federal government and they've not been paid. Can we go on like this without being without on check, or you want the people to come at you? These are critical questions. Are there even political sanity? Even the political class and the political parties. We'll be wrapping up on those thoughts after this break, everyone. Thanks so much, everyone, for staying with us. Kalawale Johnson is a political policy and governance analyst and is thinking with us on the state of our nation, especially the dynamics of the new service chiefs that have come into play and how that affects our democracy. Our final question to wrap up now is on whether or not the actors within the political landscape are sensitive enough to the situation in the country, whether there are, in fact, internal political sanity, and whether or not the political class is sensitive enough. What do you think is going on?
I think the answer will be no, obviously, because, you have the facts there on the table and they're everywhere on the street. And this should be a call on our political actors to please be sensitive, because you can provoke the impossible, as a matter of fact. And each time you see us having this intervention, you will see all of these factors, mentioned. They are always there. So I think, number one, the political actors must start promoting internal democracy. Number two, actors must ensure that governance is centered around the people. Number three, you must ensure that every institution of this country is not just meant to be relevant, but you carry them along and ensure that there is this sense of belonging. Then the cry of marginalization must be checked. You mustn't leave any part of the country to feel they are not part of you. I think it is in our culture, each time someone gets there, you want to put everything in your domain. That should change. We must checkmate that. We can no longer afford that in the present dispensation. Things are different. The division is just there. And I think the government, said something at the beginning of the year that they were going to go for a drive for unity in the country. I've not seen that. There's a need to go for orientation, to get the people together. See, the line of division, they are no longer lines. They are now, gulf. Yeah. They are there. So we need to ensure that we bring the people together. That is very important. We can do that.
Political and policy governance analyst. Thanks so much indeed for your time today.
Thank you. But you put me on the hot seat. It's a very sensitive time.
I know it is very sensitive. That's our show for tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimale. Good night.